I'm Judith, 34, and that September evening in Seattle is etched into my soul like a wound that won't fade. I'd just returned from a work trip, my shoulders knotted from a cramped flight, my heart warm with thoughts of slipping into my own bed. But the front lawn held my life in ruins, clothes tangled in wet grass, books swollen from drizzle, my childhood diary flapping open its inked secrets spilling to the wind. My husband Roger stood on the porch, his face cold as slate neighbors' eyes glinting from shadowed windows. Irene's betrayal unspoken but heavy sliced deeper than I could name. The air smelled of rain and loss, the streetlights casting long shadows over my broken world. I forced a smile masking a storm of rage and grief, my hands trembling in the damp chill. How do you rebuild when trust crumbles to dust? Where are you watching from? Like and subscribe to hear how I clawed my way back. I'm Judith, 34, and that lawn felt like the earth had cracked open, swallowing my footing. My suitcase sat by the curb wheels crusted with Seattle's muddy drizzle, a silent witness to my collapse. I knelt picking up a torn wedding photo, Roger's arm around me, our smiles frozen in a moment I thought eternal. The grass soaked my jeans, the air thick with damp earth and betrayal. The faint hum of a distant car mocking my stillness. Neighbors' curtains twitched their gazes sharp, pinning me like a curiosity under glass. Roger stood in the doorway, arms crossed, jaw set, eyes cold as the evening mist. We'd met at 16, stealing kisses behind high school bleachers, dreaming of a house, kids, a shared life. 15 years of marriage, late nights planning my sacrifices for his career now shattered. I stepped closer, boots sinking into sodden ground, and asked, voice trembling, why he didn't blink. It's been Irene for months, he said flat as a weather report. She's better for me. You need to go. I wanted to scream to claw back the years, but my throat locked. I clutched the photo, its edges cutting my palm, and forced out, this is my home too, Roger. He laughed, sharp, cruel. Not anymore. It's in my name. You're out. His words struck like a fist, stealing breath, the first deep crack in my heart. A memory flickered, our first night in this house, toasting with cheap wine, promising forever. Now it was ash. Lois, my neighbor across the street, lingered, her raincoat slick under the streetlight's glow. She'd brought casseroles when Mom died, her kindness steady. I looked to her, desperate for an anchor, but she averted her eyes, muttering, I saw them at the cafe last week. Irene was all over him. My cheeks burned, shame creeping like fog. The neighborhood knew I'd been buried in work, excusing Roger's late nights, blind to the truth. A neighbor, Rita, watched from her porch, her pity heavy, while another Thelma passed, her glance fleeting but sharp. I scanned the lawn, spotting a wooden box half buried Mom's. Inside was her letter, written before she passed, handwriting shaky but fierce, warning of Roger's temper, how he'd snapped at her once. I'd dismissed it too in love. Now her words were a ghost's whisper. You should have known. I tucked it in my pocket, hands trembling, the drizzle cold, the truth sinking like lead. A memory hit Mom, teaching me to bake her hands steady, saying, trust your gut, Judith. I hadn't. I asked Roger for my clothes, my laptop, anything to survive. He shrugged. Take what you can carry. Irene's moving in tomorrow. My lungs tightened, air too thick. Irene, with her too loud laugh, sharp eyes at office parties, I'd trusted her him. My life was wreckage for all to see. I grabbed a duffel stuffing and sweaters, boots. Mom's letter, each item heavy with memory. A neighbor's dog barked sharp in the dusk, as Lois approached, voice low. I'm sorry, Judith. I didn't know how to tell you. I nodded, throat raw. How many knew? How long was I the fool? Roger called from the porch as I zipped the bag. You'll be fine. You always are. His mockery stung my pain, a punchline. I straightened, meeting his gaze, jaw tight. I wasn't fine, but I wouldn't break here. I walked to my car, grass, clinging to my boots, betrayal a shadow trailing me. A neighbor, Dolores, watering her lawn, looked away. Her silence, another weight in the growing dark. I drove to a motel on Seattle's edge, its neon sign flickering like a dying star, the parking lot cracked, pooling with rain. I'm Judith, 34, and I'd never felt so small hands gripping the wheel, Roger's words looping, "She's better for me." At check-in, I barely heard Agnes the clerk, her gray eyes weary but kind, like she'd seen too many broken souls. She slid me a key, saying, "I've seen that look, honey. Betrayal cuts deep. You'll get through it." I nodded, numb her words. A faint echo, I couldn't hold the lobby's stale coffee smell lingering. The room was dim, musty air, thick with old carpet and regret. I dropped my duffel on the sagging bed springs, groaning. My phone buzzed, and I hoped foolishly for Roger's apology. It was Brenda, my sister. I answered, voice flat. She hesitated, then said, "I heard about Roger. I'm so sorry." Her pause grew heavy, laced with truth. "You knew, didn't you?" I asked, sharp. She sighed. "I suspected something didn't want to hurt you." A memory flashed Brenda and me as kids sharing secrets under blankets now broken. My chest burned, a wound tearing open. Brenda, my rock since Mom's death, had kept this, I pressed, and she admitted seeing Roger and Irene at a bar. Their laughter too close, her hand on his. "I thought it was nothing," she said, voice small. I trusted him. Her excuse was a slap, another betrayal. I'd shared every dream, every fear, and she'd left me blind. I hung up, hands trembling, the room's silence a weight. The radiator hissed, a cruel underscore to my pain. I opened my laptop, needing something solid, and logged into our bank account. My heart stopped, 127.43 dies. We'd had 20,000 last I checked. My pulse raced, scrolling through transactions, withdrawals, transfers to an unknown account months back. Roger hadn't just cheated. He'd stolen our future while I worked late, believing we were building something. The screen's glow stung numbers, a cold betrayal. A memory hit, saving for a trip we never took, Roger promising soon Judith. I paced the linoleum, creaking, memories cutting like glass. The company picnic, Irene in a sundress, her hand grazing Roger's arm, her laugh too bright. I'd smiled, thinking her friendly. Now her smirk stood out, a taunt I'd missed. I'd been caught in deadlines, routine blind to cracks. A truck rumbled outside, jarring me. Agnes knocked, gray hair catching dim light, and handed me a coffee. "On the house," she said. "My husband did the same years ago. Took everything. You'll find your way, honey." Her story lingered, a seed I wasn't ready to plant. I sipped the coffee, bitter scalding, staring at peeling wallpaper, my mind a storm. I called Brenda, needing answers. "Why didn't you warn me?" I asked, voice cutting. She stammered, "I thought you'd figure it out." "Protecting you." "Protecting me," I snapped. "You let me walk into this blind." Her silence was heavy, then a whisper, "I'm sorry, Judith. I didn't know how bad." Her apology rang hollow, piling onto Roger's betrayal. A guest's cough next door pierced the quiet, my exposure raw. I sat staring at the duffel, Mom's letter peeking out. I couldn't read it, her words would break me. I checked the bank app, refreshing pointlessly, 127.43. Mocking me. My life was gone, home savings trust stolen by those I'd leaned on. In that dingy room. Radiator hissing, Agnes's coffee cooling, a defiance sparked, small but fierce whispering, I wasn't done. A memory of Mom's voice. "You're tougher than you think," stirred faint but growing. I'm Judith, 34. And the motel's stale air pressed the pawnshop receipt for Dad's watch crumpled in my fist. My phone buzzed, Joyce, my high school friend who'd held me at Mom's funeral. "So sorry about you and Roger." It read like a condolence. I typed, "You knew too." Her reply, "I thought you were figuring it out. Didn't want to meddle." My stomach twisted. Joyce, who'd shared my secrets since teens, had watched my life unravel silent. The air smelled of mildew, the walls closing in. I paced, memories cutting. Roger's late-night calls, stepping outside, claiming work. I'd believed him, trusted the man who'd vowed forever in our tiny chapel rings, cheap but shining. Every memory was a lie, now misread. I opened my laptop, needing proof I wasn't losing it, and dug into bank records. A $5,000 transfer to Irene's name. My hands shook, breath-catching, screen's glow cold. A flashback, Dad's watch ticking as he read bedtime stories, now pawned, gone. Brenda called, voice tentative. "Can we talk?" she asked. I let her speak. I lent Roger money, she said. For a business deal. I believed him. My jaw tightened. You gave him money? I asked sharp. How much? 2,000, she paused. I thought it'd help you both, Judith. I laughed bitter raw. Help us. He's robbing me blind. My sister who'd braided my hair, held me when Dad died, had fueled his betrayal. A memory her warning about Roger's charm years ago ignored. Her silence stretched our rift a chasm. I hung up chest tight and stepped to the window. A stray dog curled under a streetlight, fur-matted eyes hollow like mine. I wanted to save it myself, but the weight pinned me. Wet pavement smell hit my breath, fogging glass. I went to work hoping routine would steady me, but whispers followed. Marilyn avoided my gaze, pity sharp. 2 colleagues in the break room, she must have known right. My face burned, shame clinging like fog. A coworker, Esther, saw me in the bathroom splashing water on my cheeks. You okay? She asked. I nodded her concern, fleeting warmth. That evening, I drove past the house, drawn like a moth. Roger's car was gone. Lights glowed Irene's silhouette in the kitchen, owning it. My kitchen where I'd baked Mom's apple pie for Roger's birthdays. I parked, hands trembling. Gloria's email, I'm here, but Roger said you were distant. He'd turned friends against me, rewriting our story. At the corner store needing air, I overheard neighbors. She wasn't enough, one said. Always working. Words nailed my old life's coffin. I bought a soda clerk's glance a mercy and stood outside watching the dog. Its eyes met mine, anger surging not just at Roger, but at all who'd seen my fall silent. A passerby. Sylvia nodded, her smile awkward but kind, a brief light. The fire in me roared, demanding action soon. I'm Judith, 34, and the world collapsed, the motel's vending machine hum, a cruel reminder. I couldn't sleep, air thick, so I drove to the house, parking in shadows, heart pounding. Seattle's rain stopped, leaving a chill in my bones. I needed to know how far Roger's betrayal ran. The street was quiet, a distant car horn echoing. A memory hit Dad's laughter, teaching me to ride a bike in that driveway, now a stranger's territory. The house was silent, Roger's car gone. I used my spare key, hands shaking, slipping inside floorboards, creaking alien. In the study behind books, a folder labeled New Start in Roger's scrawl. My stomach dropped, real estate forms, a contract to sell our home, my signature forged. He was erasing me, selling our dreams. The air smelled of dust, betrayal, shadows, heavy. A clock ticked, mocking stolen time. I sank into the chair, breath shallow, reading. Bank statements showed transfers to Irene, an email to a lawyer plotting to minimize Judith's claim. She's got nothing without me, he wrote. Rage and disbelief collided, chest tight. He wasn't leaving. He was destroying my future. I called Kathleen, voice sharp despite the hour. This is fraud, she said. He's forging hiding assets. You could lose everything. Her words drowned me. A neighbor's dog barked, pulling me back. A notebook in a drawer held Roger's scrawl, Judith's too caught up. Irene's freedom. Judith's a burden. I'll be rid of her. Tears burned. He'd hated me maybe years while I loved him. Headlights swept Roger's car. I shoved notebook and papers into my bag, slipped out the back, pulse hammering. In my car at a dark park, I read, a burden. Rid of her. A jogger, Clifford passed his flashlight, startling, grounding me. At a community barbecue needing air, I saw Irene, arm through Roger's, laugh slicing. She caught my eye, raising a glass, taunting. Roger spoke loudly. Judith couldn't keep up. She's why we failed. Faces turned, pity and judgment mixing. Connie looked away, her silence cutting. I froze, throat tight, no words. Harold stepped forward. That's enough, Roger, he said. Leave her be. His defense flickered, but humiliation drowned it. Margaret hesitated, her nod. Awkward pain contagious. I'm Judith, 34, and Harold's words faded, crowd's stares burning. My phone buzzed, Irene's text, a photo of her on my bed in my silk pajamas from our 10th anniversary. This suits me better, it read. My hands shook, her smugness, twisting bedroom memories ash. I stumbled to my car. Seattle's night blurring through tears. How had I lost everything? A streetlight flickered, humming cruelly. A memory. Our anniversary, Roger's promise of forever. Now a lie. At the motel, I checked email, desperate. A bank alert. My credit score plummeted. Roger took loans in my name, maxing cards I didn't know. I called, voice shaking, the representative's tone cold, thousands in debt overdue tied to me. Roger used my identity, a financial noose. The line crackled, clerk's impatience isolating. I collapsed, springs, groaning, ceilings, stains mocking. Brenda called, strained. I didn't know, she said then, maybe if you'd been home more. Her blame cut a fresh betrayal. I snapped, I don't need excuses, hanging up, rage swallowing. I paced, mind spiraling. Everything, home savings, reputation stripped. The notebook. Once she's gone, Irene's my future. Roger's words tore a sob, his plan clear. Barbara had hinted at Irene's glances, but I'd laughed. Now her silence, Brenda's neighbors crashed together. Agnes knocked, worried. You okay? I heard you crying. I shook my head. Her presence faint warmth. Irene's video, her and Roger at our restaurant, happier without you, twisted the knife, leaving me hollow, heart raw, no escape. I'm Judith, 34. And that night, Irene's video looping, something snapped, a quiet fuse igniting. I was done being broken. Agnes's presence nudged me. I searched for a private investigator, Eugene's name standing out. I called, voice steadier. I'm Judith. My husband's stealing everything. He agreed to meet. At a diner, his notepad, worn, eyes kind, I poured out Roger's affair, forged documents, loans. This is fraud, he said. We'll trace the money. I handed over the notebook, its words raw. He read, this is gold. He's sloppy. A spark lit. I met Kathleen, office, cramped, coffee and books thick in the air. She spread documents. He's moving assets to Irene. File for divorce. We'll freeze them. I nodded. Let's do it. She drafted papers, a weightlifting. A client, Leroy, overheard. You're taking charge. His nod boosted me. I used Roger's laptop email, logged in, finding a chain plotting to cut Judith out. I forwarded it to Eugene, each click defiance. Diane hugged me. You're tougher than you look. Anita shared her divorce, fueling me. I met Brenda at a park, leaves crunching. I told her about the fraud, her money. Her face paled. I didn't know, she said. I should have told you about Irene. I pulled back. You should have. Help me now. She nodded, tears falling. A jogger. Sylvia waved, grounding me. Eugene called, found a hidden account Roger's funneling through a shell company. Do it, I said. We'll iron. I wasn't fighting for money, but me. The stray dog watched, eyes steady, a quiet ally in my reclaiming. I'm Judith, 34, and the spark grew, a fire I hadn't felt in years. With Eugene tracking Kathleen, building my case, I needed my ground. Lois called, I know a guy renting a downtown apartment. I met her, a one-bedroom with creaky floors, skyline flickering. A lifeline. Anne waved, Esther helped with boxes, their kindness weaving me in. I signed the lease, hands steady, my name free. Lois gave a fern a fresh start. My throat tightened, gratitude replacing pain. I contacted Marion, therapist, her office warm with plants. I told her about the lawn loans. What do you want, Judith? To be enough, I said, voice breaking. We unpacked pain-clearing fog. Sandra, a client, said therapy saved me. I dug into Roger's trail, photos of him and Irene on trips, stinging, but I saved them for Kathleen, clicks defiance. Lynn saw my focus. You've got fire. Gail shared her start over, our stories aligning. At the bank, I reported loans, voice firm. Francis promised investigation, you're not alone. Paula, a teller, said, women come back from worse. A vendor, Clifford, sold me coffee. His grin warm. At my apartment, I wrote a letter to Roger, unsent, spilling betrayal. Love I'd believed. Clarity, not anger, drove me. I sealed it, looked around my bare apartment, city humming. My reflection in the window was sharp eyes, strong, ready to fight for me. I'm Judith, 34, and my apartment's air lightened, a window cracked. Divorce papers hit Roger, and I sat firm catching dawn. Kathleen called bank, froze his accounts. He's furious. I exhaled, victory settling. Carl, delivery guy, dropped a package, his smile brief. Roger called venomous. You think you can ruin me? I'll drag you down, I said. You tried. It's over. His threat lingered. Lloyd, a neighbor, waved, grounding me. Marie, barista, overheard. Sounds like you're winning. Eugene called Irene's out, left Roger Banks' questions too much. I leaned against the counter, pity stirring, not joy. Vernon Jogger nodded. Kathleen showed proof of forged signatures. The house is yours for now. My name real reclaimed me. Eileen at the cafe nodded kindly. Brenda came, eyes red. I should have protected you. She gave a check, $2,000. I hugged her, a start. Thelma dropped cookies, her kindness stitching me. I walked to the house, keys in hand. Silence heavy. No. Irene, Roger, just echoes. Raymond waved, grounding me. I stood in the bare living room porch light, flickering stillness, settling my choices, a pause before the next step. I'm Judith, 34, and the house felt like a ghost, its rooms echoing loss. I painted, covering Roger's green with cream, each stroke rebellion. Paint smell mixed with air. Gloria texted, sorry I spread rumors. Can we talk? Relief and hurt unanswered. Norma at the hardware store saw my cans, new start. Huh? I joined a support group. Beverly's story echoing mine. You survive by choosing yourself. Sharon's resilience lit my path, our bond growing. I unpacked Mom's ceramic bird-chipped wing, her strength. Roger called pleading I messed up. I said, no tracing the bird, shutting a door. Joan apologized. We should have spoken up. Neighborhood whispers turned nods. Lois said Roger's rant backfired. I saw the stray dog limping and named it Hope, bringing it home. Its steps comforted. Margaret smiled. That dog's lucky. I locked the door, Hope's breathing, a quiet anchor, my choices a heavy pause. I'm Judith, 34, and apartment mornings felt mine. Hope's paws tapped, tail wagging as I brewed coffee scent with Seattle's air. I walked her skyline softening. Karen Jogger nodded. At the nonprofit, Frances guided, You've got fire. Ellen shared her start over. Ruth barista said, You sisters are tough. Brenda and I met, planned a coastal trip, laughter real. I gardened herbs, sprouting Mom's photo by my bed. Peggy shared cuttings, weaving me into community. I'm Judith, 34, and my apartment's quiet was a friend. Mom's letter, keep your heart open but guard it, settled in me. Loretta said, you're building something new. At the shelter, Colleen's resilience mirrored mine. Patricia's laughter sparked. Roger's fraud exposed, Kathleen whispered, you've got security. Wayne held the door. You won big. Lois's potluck, I shared. I'm rebuilding. Diane apologized, a step to peace. I journaled Roger's call unanswered. With Hope's skyline shimmering, my heart guarded, I stood steady. I'm Judith, 34, and days felt mine. I sold the house, bought a bungalow porch perfect with hope. Arlene said, this suits you. At the nonprofit, mentoring, Susan Francis praised Marilyn's shared loss. Brenda and I walked the beach, forgiving for me. Ralph's coffee warmed us. My garden bloomed, Mom's photo guiding. Hope curled by me, life enough. On the porch, sky pink, I closed my eyes, past softening, ready for the next page. I'm Judith, 34, and life took shape in small moments. I ran pulse strong, Seattle's air sharp. Joanne's muffins sparked laughter. At the shelter, Colleen's novel healed, Arlene's nod bonded us. My watercolor wave hung, Loretta praised, you've got heart. A stranger's email, your story gave courage, moved me. Jane's resilience lit mine. I forgave myself, trust my hope. Pain not defining me, but my building, Colleen, Brenda, hope. What pain have you turned into strength? Share below. I'd love to hear. Like, subscribe, share. It might help someone. Thank you for being here. Here's to healing, new beginnings, your light.